They built a coffin out of concrete and steel, 3,000 tons of it, buried 12 stories underground beneath the Nevada desert, and they did it in 72 hours. No one questioned why. No one asked what they were sealing away, because the people who saw what was down there never spoke again. Some couldn't, others wouldn't, and the rest simply disappeared. I'm about to tell you what happened in Area 51 in September 1947 that was so catastrophic, so unthinkable, that the United States military made an entire level of their most classified facility vanish from existence. And it wasn't aliens they were hiding. It was something far worse, something human beings created, something that should never have existed. My name is Colonel Richard Hayes. I'm 87 years old. Terminal cancer gives a man perspective about secrets and consequences. And before I die, the world needs to know what Nazi scientists did when we brought them to America, what we allowed them to do in the name of winning the Cold War, what went so horrifically wrong that we had to bury it and pretend it never happened. If you think you know the darkest parts of human history, if you believe the horrors ended when World War II did, you're wrong. The real nightmare began after we won, when we decided that Nazi brilliance was more valuable than Nazi crimes, when we gave monsters new laboratories and told them to keep working, just do it for us this time. And if you want to understand why governments lie, why some secrets stay buried for generations, why certain facilities exist that aren't on any map, subscribe to this channel right now, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see everything. The official history, the scientific community, the very nature of what governments will sacrifice in pursuit of power. Hit that subscribe button, because once you hear this story, you'll need to hear what else they've been hiding. It started with Operation Paperclip. After Germany fell in 1945, American and Soviet forces raced to capture Nazi scientists before the other side could get them. We wanted their rocket technology, their jet propulsion research, their advanced chemistry and physics. We told ourselves we were preventing these mines from falling into Soviet hands, that we were being pragmatic, strategic. But what we really did was give pardons to war criminals, men who had experimented on prisoners in concentration camps, who had done things that made hardened soldiers vomit when they saw the evidence. We erased their pasts, gave them new identities, brought them to America with their families, set them up in comfortable homes with good salaries, and gave them state-of-the-art laboratories to continue their work. One of these men was Dr. Klaus Richter. His real name isn't in any history book because we wiped it from existence. But in Germany, he had been part of a program so classified that even other SS officers didn't know its full scope. They called it Das Schrellen Project, the Threshold Project, and its goal was to find the exact point where human consciousness could be manipulated through external stimuli, the threshold between mind and body, between self and other, between alive and something else. Richter had done experiments in Dachau that are too horrific to describe in detail. Experiments involving sensory deprivation combined with electromagnetic exposure, surgical alterations to the brainstem, introduction of chemical compounds derived from biological sources no ethical scientist would touch. His research notes, which we captured, showed test subjects who lost the ability to distinguish between their own thoughts and implanted suggestions, people who could be made to do absolutely anything while believing it was their own choice. The military saw potential. Imagine soldiers who couldn't be broken by interrogation because their minds weren't their own anymore. Imagine being able to plant agents in enemy governments who didn't even know they were compromised. Imagine perfect control, perfect loyalty, perfect weapons made from human beings. So we gave Richter everything he wanted, and we sent him to Area 51, which in 1947 was brand new, built specifically to house projects too sensitive for anywhere else. Underground laboratories where work could continue without oversight, without ethics committees, without anyone asking uncomfortable questions. Richter wasn't alone. We brought 5 of his team members, and we gave them test subjects. That's what they called them, test subjects. Not prisoners, not volunteers who gave informed consent, just people. People whose disappearances wouldn't be noticed or investigated. Prisoners from military brigs who officially died during transport. Foreign nationals captured during overseas operations. People who the system had already decided didn't matter.
For 2 years, Richter's work progressed. Reports filtered up through classified channels, promising results, breakthroughs in understanding neural plasticity, success in creating altered states of consciousness that persisted after external stimuli ended. The brass was excited. This was going to win the Cold War before it really started. I wasn't there in those early days. I was a first lieutenant in 1947, stationed in Washington, not cleared for anything beyond routine intelligence. But I had a friend who was there, Lieutenant Thomas Chen. We'd served together in Europe. When he got assigned to Area 51, he thought he'd hit the jackpot, top-secret work, career-making opportunity. He was 24 years old and believed America was the good guys doing good things. Tom sent me a letter in August 1947, only letter I ever got from him. It was heavily censored, black lines redacting most of it. But what got through was enough. He wrote, "They're doing things here that keep me up at night, things I can't unsee. I don't know if this is worth it anymore, if winning is worth becoming what we fought against." 3 weeks later, Tom was dead. Training accident, the official report said. His body was never returned to his family. Closed casket funeral. I attended, looked at that flag-draped box, and wondered what was really inside. I didn't learn the truth until 1973, 26 years later, when I'd climbed to colonel and gotten clearances that opened doors I didn't know existed, when someone decided I needed to know about Level 7, about what happened there, about why it was sealed and everyone who'd been there was gone. What I learned is this. In September 1947, Richter's experiments reached what he called the breakthrough phase. He'd successfully altered the consciousness of multiple subjects to the point where they would follow any instruction without hesitation or moral resistance. But he wanted to go further. He theorized that consciousness itself could be fragmented, that you could split a human mind into multiple distinct personalities, each one controllable independently. The perfect asset, one person who could be multiple agents, each unaware of the others. To test this, he needed to push subjects beyond any previous threshold, more extreme sensory deprivation, higher doses of his chemical compounds, more invasive surgical procedures. And the subjects he was working with had already been through so much. Their minds were compromised, their bodies were failing. But Richter didn't care. He was close to something revolutionary, close to the ultimate tool of control. And then, on September 14, 1947, something went catastrophically wrong. What happened next is based on classified testimony from the 3 survivors who made it out before Level 7 was sealed. Their accounts are fragmentary. Trauma does that, makes memory unreliable. But certain details were consistent across all 3. The test subjects, all 16 of them that Richter had been working with, changed. Not gradually, suddenly, as if something fundamental had shifted in all of them simultaneously. They stopped responding to commands, stopped responding to anything, just stood there in their containment cells, silent, staring. Then they started moving together in perfect synchronization, like they were parts of a single organism. They broke out of their cells. Security footage, which I was shown under threat of court-martial if I ever discussed it, shows them moving through Level 7 with impossible coordination. They knew where guards would be before guards arrived. They moved as one unit despite being scattered across the facility. And then they started killing. Not randomly, systematically. Every person who had been part of Richter's team, every guard assigned to Level 7, every scientist and technician who had participated in any way. They hunted them with precision, suggested they shared information telepathically, which shouldn't be possible, but the footage shows it. 16 people moving like parts of a single predator. Richter tried to escape. Security footage shows him running. The subjects surrounded him, and what they did to him took 43 minutes. I won't describe it, can't, but the psychological evaluation I underwent after viewing that footage lasted 3 months. By the time military response teams reached Level 7, 72 people were dead. The test subjects were found in the main laboratory, arranged in a circle, all dead. Simultaneous cardiac arrest, according to the medical examiner, as if they'd simply decided to live, or whatever was controlling them had finished and discarded them.
But here's what terrified the military command enough to seal the entire level. The subjects had written something on the walls in blood, thousands of repetitions of the same phrase in multiple languages, including languages none of the subjects should have known. "We opened the door. It's looking back." No one understood what it meant, but the decision was made immediately. Level 7 would be sealed permanently. 3,000 tons of concrete and reinforced steel. The official record would show it never existed. Everyone who'd been there and survived would be transferred to classified assignments where they could be monitored. Most of them didn't last long, suicides mostly. A few disappeared. The facility at Area 51 continued operating, still does, but Level 7 is buried beneath it, sealed away, with whatever Richter unleashed still down there. Because here's the thing that none of the official reports want to acknowledge. Before they sealed it, teams went in to retrieve sensitive materials, and the electronic surveillance equipment left behind continued recording for 6 hours before the concrete blocked all signals. And in those 6 hours, that equipment detected movement, sound, activity in an area where everyone was confirmed dead. I was shown 30 seconds of that footage, just 30 seconds, shadows moving in ways shadows shouldn't move, sounds that weren't quite words but carried the structure of language, and worst of all, a voice that sounded like it was coming from multiple sources simultaneously, saying, "Thank you for the door." If you're still watching, if you haven't clicked away because this sounds insane, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel, share this video, because there are more stories like this, more facilities with sealed levels, more experiments that went wrong in ways that defy explanation. And the more people who know, the harder it becomes for them to keep hiding it. So subscribe, share, make sure this doesn't disappear like everything else they want buried. What Richter did in those 2 years, what he was trying to achieve, was never fully understood. The research notes were sealed, the survivors were silenced, but I've spent 50 years piecing together fragments, and I believe he succeeded. He found a way to fragment consciousness so completely that it stopped being singular. And when you do that, when you break down the barriers that make a mind an individual self, something else can come through, something that exists in the spaces between pieces, something that's patient, that's waiting, that said, "Thank you for the door," because it knows, eventually, someone will unseal it. This is what happened in Area 51 in September 1947. This is why an entire level was erased from existence. This is what Nazi scientists did when we gave them the freedom to continue their work.
And this is why some secrets are kept, not to protect national security, but to protect humanity from understanding how close we've come to opening doors that should stay locked forever. I'm 87 years old, terminal cancer. I'll be dead before anyone can prosecute me for breaking classification. But before I go, I needed someone to know, someone to understand that the monsters from World War II didn't stop when Germany fell. We brought them here, gave them new laboratories, let them continue their work. And when it went catastrophically wrong, we buried it, literally. Level 7 is still there, still sealed, and if the surveillance equipment that recorded those final 6 hours was right, still occupied. By what? I don't know. The official classification is unknown anomalous presence, but I think it's simpler than that. I think Richter found a way to fragment consciousness so completely that it stopped being singular. And when you do that, when you break down the barriers that make a mind an individual self, something else can come through, something that exists in the spaces between pieces, something that's patient, that's waiting, that said, "Thank you for the door," because it knows, eventually, someone will unseal it. This is what happened in Area 51 in September 1947. This is why an entire level was erased from existence. This is what Nazi scientists did when we gave them the freedom to continue their work. And this is why some secrets are kept, not to protect national security, but to protect humanity from understanding how close we've come to opening doors that should stay locked forever.
My name is Colonel Richard Hayes. I held clearances most generals never see. I know secrets that would destabilize governments. And this is the one I'm taking to my grave. Well, that's not quite true. I'm giving it to you, because you deserve to know what's buried beneath Nevada, what's sealed behind concrete, what's waiting in the dark. Subscribe if you want more, because this isn't the only sealed level, not the only experiment that went wrong, not the only door we opened that we can't close. The world is full of secrets, and I'm done keeping them.